The announcement that changed everything. Vivian Ashford lived by 3 rules. Never back down from a challenge, never let emotions cloud judgment, and never, under any circumstances, let Dominic Laurent win. The 3rd rule had served her particularly well over the past 5 years, as they'd battled across negotiation tables, in courtrooms, and during every business function where Manhattan's elite gathered to watch them clash like gladiators in designer suits. Before we begin, I kindly request that you please subscribe to my channel. Now, please share in the comments where you're watching from. So when her father, Gregory Ashford, summoned her to his Fifth Avenue study on that crisp October evening, she expected another lecture about softening her approach or perhaps a new client assignment. What she didn't expect was to find Dominic already seated in the leather chair across from her father's mahogany desk, his expression unreadable. "Vivian, sit down," her father commanded, gesturing to the empty chair beside her sworn enemy. She remained standing. "I'd rather not. Whatever this meeting is about, I'm sure it won't take long. It concerns your future," came the voice of Catherine Laurent, Dominic's mother, emerging from the shadows near the window. Her elegant figure was silhouetted against the glittering cityscape. "Both of your futures, actually." Vivian's stomach dropped. She glanced at Dominic, who was studying his cufflinks with unusual intensity. That's when she knew. Whatever was coming, he already knew about it. The contract of families. Gregory cleared his throat. "The Ashford and Laurent families have been competing for decades. Your generation has taken that rivalry to new heights. But competition, while profitable, has its limits. We've decided it's time for unity." "Unity," Vivian repeated, her lawyer's mind already racing through implications. "Marriage," Catherine said simply. "You and Dominic will be married within 3 months. The announcement will be made at the Winter Charity Gala next week." The room tilted. Vivian gripped the back of the chair she'd refused to sit in. "You cannot be serious. It's already decided," her father said. "The contracts are drawn. This merger will create the most powerful hospitality and legal consortium in North America. The Ashford legal expertise combined with Laurent's global hotel empire." "I don't care about the business advantages," Vivian interrupted, her voice rising. "You can't just arrange my life like I'm some medieval pawn." "Actually, we can." Her father's tone turned cold. "Your trust fund, your position in the firm, your inheritance, all contingent on your cooperation. The same applies to Dominic regarding his stake in Laurent Hotels." She finally looked at Dominic properly. He met her gaze with those infuriatingly calm grey eyes, and something flickered there. Not happiness, not even resignation, something closer to grim acceptance. "When did you find out?" she demanded. 6 weeks ago, he answered quietly. 6 weeks. He'd known for 6 weeks and said nothing. They'd argued over the Henderson acquisition just last Tuesday, traded barbs at the Rothschild fundraiser Thursday, and all the while, he'd known they were supposed to marry. "You coward," she breathed. His jaw tightened, the first crack in his composure. "What would you have had me do? We were both trapped the moment our parents decided. You could have warned me, given me time to think, to prepare, to run." He stood now, matching her fury with his own. "Where exactly would you run, Vivian? Your entire life is built on being Gregory Ashford's daughter. Mine is built on being a Laurent. We're not free, and we never have been." The illusion of choicest truth of his words hit her like cold water. Every achievement she'd celebrated, every victory she'd won, had been within the framework her family provided. Her prestigious law degree, funded by Ashford money, her position as senior partner in the Ashford firm, her penthouse apartment, a graduation gift from her father. She'd built her identity on being independent, fierce, unstoppable. But underneath it all, invisible threads had always been pulling her in directions chosen by others. "There has to be another way," she said, hating how her voice wavered. "If there was, don't you think I would have found it?" Dominic's voice softened slightly. "I've had 6 weeks to search for loopholes, alternatives, escape routes. There are none. Not without destroying everything we've both worked for." Catherine moved closer, her perfume expensive and suffocating. "This doesn't have to be a tragedy," Many successful marriages have begun with practical arrangements. You're both attractive, intelligent, from the same social circle. You already know each other's strengths and weaknesses. We despise each other, Vivian said flatly. Passion takes many forms, Gregory observed. The intensity of your rivalry suggests you're not indifferent. That's something to build on. The casual way he discussed her feelings, as if they were just another asset to leverage, made Vivian want to scream. Instead, she channeled her fury into cold calculation. What are the terms? She asked. I want to see the actual contract, her father smiled. Now you're thinking clearly. Dominic asked the same thing 6 weeks ago. Over the next hour, they reviewed the terms. A 5-year minimum marriage contract. Separate residences permitted, but not encouraged. Required joint appearances at major social and business functions. Financial incentives for producing heirs. Severe financial penalties for early termination or infidelity that became public. It was a business agreement dressed up in wedding vows, and reading it made Vivian feel hollow. When the meeting finally ended, she found herself alone with Dominic on the private elevator, descending from her father's penthouse office. The silence was suffocating. I really did want to tell you, he said as they passed the 30th floor. But you didn't. Would it have changed anything? Would you have fought any harder knowing sooner? She considered this. Probably not. But I would have had time to adjust. To prepare myself mentally, I gave you peace for 6 more weeks. I thought that was kinder. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage. Vivian stepped out, but turned back before the doors could close. This marriage, whatever it becomes, starts with you keeping information from me. That's not a good foundation. No, he agreed. It's not. So let me give you information now. I don't hate you, Vivian. I never have. Competing with you has been the most exhilarating part of my professional life. You're brilliant and fierce, and yes, absolutely infuriating. But I don't hate you. What do you want me to say to that? She asked. Nothing. I just wanted you to know that going into this, we're not starting from hatred. We're starting from complicated respect. Maybe that's enough. The elevator doors closed before she could respond, leaving her alone in the cold garage, with the weight of an unwanted future pressing down on her shoulders. The media circus announcement at the Winter Charity Gala was exactly as horrible as Vivian anticipated. She wore a champagne silk gown that cost more than most people's cars, stood beside Dominic in his impeccable tuxedo, and smiled for the cameras as their fathers announced the joyous union of 2 great families. The gossip columns exploded. Some praised a romantic reconciliation of former rivals. Others speculated about pregnancy or scandal. A few astute business journalists noted the strategic brilliance of the merger. None of them knew the truth, that both bride and groom felt like prisoners in gilded cages, smiling because the alternative was losing everything. Over the following weeks, Vivian threw herself into work with even more intensity than usual. She won the Henderson case, successfully defended a major corporate client against fraud charges, and negotiated 3 complex mergers. If she couldn't control her personal life, she'd dominate her professional one. But Dominic kept appearing, at her favorite coffee shop in the morning, at the gym she frequented, at the small Italian restaurant where she usually grabbed dinner while reviewing briefs. Never intrusive, never demanding conversation, just there, a constant reminder of the future bearing down on her. Finally, 3 weeks after the announcement, she confronted him at the coffee shop. Are you following me? He looked up from his newspaper, genuinely surprised. No, I'd been coming here for 8 years. This is my table. She glanced around and realized she'd unconsciously sat at the table next to what might indeed be his regular spot, given the barista's familiar greeting when he'd arrived. Oh, she felt foolish, and Vivian Ashford hated feeling foolish. Though I admit, he continued, folding his newspaper, I haven't minded the coincidence. We should probably talk about practical matters. The wedding is in 10 weeks. I'm aware. Have you thought about where you want to live? The contract allows separate residences, but makes us look weak and dysfunctional to exactly the society we're supposed to be impressing with this union, she finished. I know. I read the fine print. Of course you did. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I have a townhouse in the West Village. For stories, home office spaces, separate bedroom suites on different floors. You could have complete privacy, while technically cohabiting. It was more consideration than she'd expected. That could work. Good. He stood, preparing to leave. I'll have my assistant send you the details. You can remodel, redecorate, whatever you need to feel comfortable. Dominic, she called as he reached the door. He turned back. Why are you being so accommodating? Because we're both trapped, he said simply. We can make each other miserable, or we can try to make the cage comfortable. I prefer the latter. After he left, Vivian sat with her cooling coffee and admitted something she'd been avoiding. Dominic Lawrence was handling this forced marriage with more grace than she was, and somehow, that annoyed her even more than the arrangement itself. The wedding nobody wanted. The ceremony took place on a pristine December morning at St. Patrick's Cathedral, because of course their families would choose the most public, prestigious venue possible. Vivian walked down the aisle in a custom Vera Wang gown, her father's arm feeling like an anchor rather than support. 400 guests watched with expressions ranging from genuine happiness to thinly veiled curiosity about how long this marriage of rivals would last. Dominic waited at the altar, and when their eyes met, she saw her own resignation reflected back. But there was something else to a flicker of determination that matched her own stubborn nature. If they were going to be forced into this, neither would allow themselves to fail publicly. The vows felt surreal. Words about love and devotion spoken by two people who'd spent years trying to outmaneuver each other. When Dominic lifted her veil to kiss her, it was brief and chaste, appropriate for the audience. But his hand trembled slightly as it cupped her face, and she realized he was just as terrified as she was. The reception at the plaza was a blur of champagne toasts, forced smiles, and well-wishers who had no idea they were celebrating a business transaction. Vivian danced with her new husband for the required first dance, his hand steady on her waist, both of them moving through the motions with practiced precision. "You look beautiful," he murmured as they swayed to the orchestra. "It's a $50,000 dress. It should look beautiful." "I meant you, not the dress." His grey eyes held hers. "Though I suppose you'd rather I didn't notice." She didn't know how to respond to that, so she said nothing, counting the minutes until this performance could end. The townhouse of unspoken rules, Dominic's West Village townhouse, was stunning exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, a library that made Vivian's lawyer heart sing. True to his word, he'd given her the entire third floor, a master suite with an attached office, separate bathroom, and sitting area. His own rooms were on the fourth floor. The second floor held common spaces, and the ground floor contained the kitchen and formal areas. "I usually leave for the office by 7, he said, showing her around on their first night as a married couple. "Coffee's programmed to start at 6:30, if you want some. I'm typically home by 8, sometimes later for business dinners. Feel free to use any of the space. The kitchen staff comes 3 times a week, unless you prefer different arrangements." It was also painfully polite and businesslike. They were roommates with a marriage certificate. "I work late most nights," Vivian said. "Don't wait up or feel obligated to coordinate schedules." "Understood." He paused at the base of the stairs leading to her floor. "Vivian, I know this isn't what either of us wanted, but we don't have to be miserable. We can be civil, maybe even friendly." "Civil I can manage," she agreed. "Friendly might be pushing it," he nodded, accepting the boundary. "Good night, then. Welcome home, I suppose." She climbed to her third-floor sanctuary and finally allowed herself to break down. Silent tears of frustration, grief for the life she'd imagined, and exhaustion from maintaining her composure all day. This was her life now, married to a man she barely knew, trapped in an arrangement that served everyone's interests except her own heart. The crisis that changed everything. They maintained their careful distance for 6 weeks. Ships passing in a well-appointed townhouse, occasionally leaving notes about mail or scheduling conflicts. Vivian buried herself in work. Dominic traveled constantly for Lawrence hotels, They attended required social functions together, playing the role of newlyweds with adequate believability. Then the Chen scandal broke. Richard Chen, a major investor in both Ashford Legal and Laurent Hotels, was arrested for fraud and money laundering. The investigation revealed connections to both companies, nothing illegal on their part, but close enough to raise serious questions. Stock prices plummeted. Clients grew nervous. The media circled like sharks. Vivian was in a partners' meeting when her father called. The Lawrence situation compounds our Chen problem. You need to coordinate with Dominic immediately. This affects both families. Now, she found Dominic in his home office that evening, surrounded by financial reports and looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. "We need to talk," she said from the doorway. He looked up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Yes, we do. Come in." For the next 3 hours, they dissected the problem. Chen's investments had tentacles throughout both empires. Untangling them without causing panic would require surgical precision and complete cooperation. "If we issue separate statements, it looks defensive," Vivian said, pacing his office. "But a joint statement shows united front, strength." Agreed. "But it needs to be airtight legally. No hint that either company knew about Chen's activities. I can draft language that protects both entities while expressing appropriate shock and cooperation with investigators." Her lawyer mind was racing now, energized by the challenge. "And I'll coordinate with our PR teams. Make sure we control the narrative before it controls us." Dominic was standing now too, matching her energy. They worked through the night, ordering Chinese food at midnight, coffee at 3 a.m., somewhere around 4, arguing over specific wording. Vivian realized she was actually enjoying herself. This was what she was good at: strategy, problem solving, high-stakes negotiation. And Dominic matched her step for step, challenging her assumptions, offering insights she hadn't considered. "You're actually quite good at this," she admitted reluctantly. "Don't sound so surprised. I didn't inherit my position by being incompetent. I never thought you were incompetent, just arrogant, rich, coming from you." But he was smiling, and she found herself smiling back. By dawn, they had a comprehensive strategy, coordinated statements, a joint press conference, a plan to systematically review and exit all Chen-connected investments, and a charm offensive targeting their most important clients and partners. "We make a decent team," Dominic said, reviewing their work as sunrise painted the office walls gold. "Don't let it go to your head," Vivian replied, but there was less bite in her voice than usual. Discovery through proximity. Chen crisis forced them together daily. Strategy sessions over breakfast, conference calls during lunch, late-night debriefs where they dissected every development. The careful distance they'd maintained evaporated by necessity. Vivian discovered things about Dominic she'd never noticed during their years of rivalry. The way he listened completely when someone spoke, giving them his full attention. How he defended his employees fiercely when the board wanted scapegoats for the Chen connection. The dark circles under his eyes, because he was taking personal responsibility for reviewing every questionable transaction. One night, 2 weeks into the crisis, she found him asleep at his desk, face down on a spreadsheet. She should have left him there. Instead, she gently shook his shoulder. "Dominic, you should go to bed." He jerked awake, disoriented. "What time is it?" 2 a.m. "Come on, you're exhausted. Can't stop now. There are still 50 accounts to review. And they'll still be there tomorrow. You're no good to anyone running on fumes." She surprised herself by taking his hand and pulling him up. "Bed. That's an order from your wife." He looked at her, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. "You called yourself my wife." "Well, technically I am, even if it's just a technicality." "Is it?" His voice was quiet. "Just a technicality." The question hung between them in the dim office. Vivian realized she was still holding his hand, and she hadn't pulled away. "I don't know what it is," she admitted, "but you need sleep." She walked him upstairs to the 4th floor, his territory. At his bedroom door, he paused. "Thank you, Vivian, for everything these past weeks. I couldn't have managed this without you. We're in this together now, whether we like it or not. I'm starting to like it, he said softly. The together part, I mean. Before she could process that confession, he disappeared into his room, leaving her standing in the hallway with her heart beating faster than it should. The moment everything shifted. Crisis reached its peak when a major business magazine prepared to run an expose, suggesting both families had known about Chen's illegal activities. It was completely false, but the damage to their reputations would be catastrophic. Vivian spent 16 hours straight building an airtight legal case to kill the story, while Dominic worked his connections to reach the magazine's board. At midnight, they finally succeeded. The story was pulled pending verification that would never come, because there was nothing to verify. They collapsed on the townhouse's second-floor couch, too exhausted to climb to their separate floors. We did it, Dominic said, his head tilted back against the cushions. We actually did it. Vivian felt giddy with relief and exhaustion. He turned to look at her, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. You were magnificent. The way you systematically destroyed their argument, found precedents, built an ironclad defense. I've never seen anything like it. You weren't so bad yourself. Calling in favors, negotiating with their board. Very impressive for a hotel mogul. Is that respect I hear in your voice, counselor? Don't push your luck. But she was smiling, and so was he, and somehow they'd moved closer on the couch. She could see the flecks of blue in his grey eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Vivian, he said, his voice rougher than usual. Can I tell you something? What? These past weeks, working with you, seeing your brilliant mind in action, watching you fight for something we both care about, I've remembered why I used to look forward to our battles. It was never really about winning. It was about the thrill of matching wits with someone who challenged me, someone exceptional. Her heart was hammering now. Dominic, I know we started this as enemies forced together, but somewhere along the way, you stopped feeling like the enemy. You started feeling like a partner, maybe more than a partner. She should have pulled away. Should have reminded him this was just a business arrangement, should have protected herself from the vulnerability she saw in his eyes. Instead, she kissed him. It was nothing like their chaste wedding kiss. This was heat and hunger, and weeks of denied attraction, finally given permission. His hands came up to frame her face, gentle despite the passion, and she melted into him, all her carefully constructed walls crumbling when they finally broke apart. Both breathing hard, Vivian felt shaken to her core. That was, she started, a mistake. He finished, looking equally rattled. I was going to say inevitable. A slow smile spread across his face. Yeah, it really was, wasn't it? She laughed, and it felt good to laugh with him instead of at him. We're ridiculous. We've been married for 2 months, and this is our first real kiss. We've been doing everything backward from the start. Why stop now? He pulled her close again, this time just holding her. Stay, tonight, not for appearances or obligation, just because we both want to. Every logical part of Vivian's brain screamed warnings about vulnerability and emotional danger, but her heart, that traitorous organ she'd kept locked away for so long, was already answering. Okay, she whispered, I'll stay. They fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, and when Vivian woke at dawn still in his arms, she realized something terrifying. She was starting to fall for her husband. The man who'd been forced into her life was somehow becoming the person she chose. The morning after changed everything. Vivian woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and Dominic's arm draped across her waist. They'd moved to his bedroom sometime in the night, too tired to overthink it. Now, in the clear light of morning, reality crashed back. She'd kissed her husband, not for show, not for obligation, because she wanted to. Dominic stirred beside her, his eyes opening slowly. When he saw her still there, relief flooded his features. You didn't run. I considered it, she admitted. But my legs were asleep. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Always so romantic, counselor. We should talk about what happened. We should, he agreed, propping himself up on one elbow. Or we could have breakfast first. I've learned you're more reasonable after coffee. Despite herself, she smiled. You've been paying attention, Vivian. I've been paying attention to you for 5 years. I just finally have permission to admit it. Over. Breakfast pancakes he made surprisingly. Well, they navigated the awkward conversation of two people reassessing their relationship. I don't want to pretend last night didn't happen, Dominic said, pouring syrup with careful precision. But I also don't want to pressure you into something you're not ready for. What if I don't know what I'm ready for? Vivian circled her coffee mug. 3 months ago, I hated the idea of this marriage. Now I'm voluntarily having breakfast with you in your kitchen. And I don't hate it. That's a ringing endorsement, Dominic. I'm serious. This is complicated. We were forced together. How do we know what we're feeling is real and not just Stockholm Syndrome with better real estate? He set down his fork, considering. Fair question. Here's what I know. The marriage might have been forced, but the Cheng crisis wasn't. We could have handled that separately, maintained our distance. Instead, we chose to work together. We chose to trust each other. Those late night strategizing, nobody forced those. We kept working together because we wanted to. And last night happened because we finally stopped lying to ourselves about the attraction that's been building since before the engagement was even announced. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. I'm not asking you to declare undying love. I'm asking if you're willing to see where this goes. Give us a real chance. Vivian looked at their joined hands. His larger, slightly calloused from his weekend carpentry hobby she'd learned about. Her smaller but strong, lawyer's hands and businessman's hands, fitting together surprisingly well. A real chance, she repeated. What does that look like? Dates, actual dates where we get to know each other without business agendas. Spending time together because we enjoy it, not because we're obligated. Being honest about what we want and what scares us. Everything about this terrifies me, she confessed. I built my whole identity on being independent, unshakable. Then you came along and shook everything. Good, he said, squeezing her hand. You've been shaking my world for years. About time I returned the favor. Learning to be more than enemies. They started dating. It was absurd dating your own husband, but it worked. Dominic took her to a small jazz club in Brooklyn. Nowhere the society photographers would find them. They argued about music. He loved classical. She preferred rock, and discovered they both had terrible singing voices and loved it anyway. Vivian surprised him with tickets to a carpentry workshop, having noticed his side hobby, watching him work with wood, his hands confident and creative. She saw a side of him the boardroom never revealed, someone who built things for the joy of creation, not profit. They cooked dinner together, or rather, he cooked while she chopped vegetables and told him about her cases. She learned he'd wanted to be a chef before family obligations steered him to business. He learned she'd briefly considered art school before her father's expectations crushed that dream. We're both living lives someone else designed, she observed one evening, washing dishes side by side. Maybe, Dominic said thoughtfully, or maybe we're finally starting to redesign them into something we actually want. The physical attraction they'd been denying intensified. Kisses became longer, deeper. His touch made her skin electric. But Dominic never pushed for more, and his restraint somehow made her want him even more. Why are you holding back? She asked one night when they were tangled on the couch, both breathing hard. Because when we finally cross that line, I want you to be absolutely certain it's what you want, not obligation, not convenience, choice. The word hung between them, choice. The thing they'd both been denied, now being offered freely. The vulnerability that broke Wolf's turning point came 6 weeks after their first kiss. Vivian received news that her biggest case, 3 years of work, had been stolen by a rival firm through unethical means. She'd lost not due to inferior work, but because someone had cheated and gotten away with it. She came home devastated, her identity as the unbeatable lawyer shattered. Dominic found her in her third-floor office, staring blankly at the wall. Talk to me, he said softly. Everything poured out: the case, the betrayal, the crushing sense of failure. I built my entire self-worth on winning, on being the best. What am I if I'm not that? He knelt beside her chair, taking her cold hands. You're Vivian Ashford. You're brilliant and fierce and compassionate, even when you try to hide it. You're the woman who works herself to exhaustion, defending people who can't defend themselves. You're someone who fought beside me against overwhelming odds and never considered surrender. One case doesn't define you. I feel like I'm falling apart, she whispered. Then fall apart. I'll catch you. He pulled her into his arms, and she finally let herself cry. Not the silent, controlled tears she usually allowed, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. Dominic held her through all of it, stroking her hair, murmuring reassurances, never telling her to be strong or pull herself together. He just let her feel everything. And somehow that unconditional acceptance broke something open inside her. When the storm finally passed, she pulled back to look at him. I'm a mess. You're human. It's kind of refreshing, actually. You're seeing me at my absolute worst. No, he said gently. I'm seeing you at your most real. And Vivian, you're still the most incredible person I know. That's when she realized the terrifying truth. She'd fallen in love with him. Somewhere between forced vows and chosen vulnerability, her husband had become the person she trusted most in the world. The declaration that changed everything. I love you, she said. The words tumbling out before she could stop them. Dominic froze. What? I love you. Now that she'd started, she couldn't stop. I don't know when it happened. Maybe during the Chen crisis, when I saw how you protected your people. Maybe during that ridiculous carpentry class when you were so patient teaching me to sandwood. Maybe it was always there, hiding under our rivalry. But I love you, Dominic. And it terrifies me, because I never chose this marriage. But I'm choosing this feeling, choosing you. And I don't know if. He kissed her, stopping the anxious rambling. When he pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you too, he said. I think I have 4 years. Fighting you. Competing with you. It was the only way I could be close to you. Then they gave me permission to have you. And I was too stupid and scared to just tell you how I felt. We're both stupid and scared. Perfect match then. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing away the tear tracks. Vivian, I know we started backward, but can we move forward now? Not as two people forced together, but as two people choosing each other every day. Yes, she breathed. God, yes. They made love that night, finally crossing the last barrier between them. It was tender and passionate and occasionally awkward in the way first times are, but it was theirs, chosen, not obligated, real, not performed. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, in what had become their shared bed, Vivian felt peace she'd never experienced. The cage their families had built around them had somehow become a home they'd chosen to share. 6 months later, choosing their own path, minus 1 year contract required for their marriage, had a clause neither had initially noticed. After the first year, either party could request renegotiation. Their 1 year anniversary approached, and Vivian had a surprise planned. She called both sets of parents to the townhouse, watching their confusion when they arrived to find Dominic beside her. United front. We need to discuss the contract, Vivian began, pulling out the document. If there are issues, we can mediate, her father started. There are no issues, Dominic interrupted. We're renegotiating terms. On what grounds? His mother asked warily. On the grounds that this marriage has become real, Vivian said firmly. We're not interested in fulfilling the minimum requirements anymore. We want to rewrite this completely. She handed them a new contract, one she and Dominic had drafted together. No mandatory timeline, no financial penalties, no requirements beyond basic legal marriage recognition, just a simple agreement that they chose to be together, with the freedom to choose to leave if ever it stopped working. This removes all the protections, Gregory protested, all the incentives we built in. We don't need incentives, Dominic said. We're not staying together for money or business advantages. We're staying together because we want to. This is foolish, Catherine argued. You're giving up significant financial security. We're choosing love over contracts. Vivian interrupted. Something you all should have let us do from the beginning, the parents argued, but ultimately, they had no legal grounds to prevent the renegotiation. Vivian and Dominic had fulfilled the required first year. The rest was up to them. After everyone left, Dominic pulled out a small velvet box. Speaking of renegotiation, I have a proposal, a real one this time. Inside was a simple platinum band, elegant and unadorned. Nothing like the ostentatious engagement ring their families had chosen. Vivian Ashford Lawrence, would you marry me? Not because anyone forces us, not because of contracts or business mergers, just because I love you and I want to spend my life with you. Choose me. Let me choose you. Every single day, tears streaming down her face, Vivian nodded. Yes, yes, I'll marry you. Again, properly this time. They had a second ceremony 6 months later, small, private, just close friends and the family members who actually supported them. Vivian wore a simple dress she chose herself. Dominic cried during his vows. They wrote their own promises, spoke from the heart about the journey from enemies to lovers to partners, and when they kissed, it was sweeter than anything obligation could have provided, because they had chosen each other, fought for each other, and built something real from the ashes of what had been forced upon them. Their love story hadn't started with choice, but it would continue with choice every single day for the rest of their lives.